As dawn broke over the ancient city of Tainan on Monday, July 6, 2025, the skies were already a swirling canvas of slate gray and bruised violet. The air was thick with tension, the kind that precedes a storm of historic proportions. By mid-morning, Typhoon Danas, a rare and powerful cyclone tracking an unusual path along Taiwan's western coast, had begun to unleash its full fury on the southern city. Unlike most typhoons that veer eastward or dissipate before reaching Taiwan's western plains, Typhoon Danas defied convention. Meteorologists from the Central Weather Administration, CWA, had warned of its rare trajectory, hugging the Taiwan Strait and skimming the island's western edge. Only 7% of recorded typhoons in the past century had taken such a path. The storm's eye was located approximately 120 kilometers southwest of Penghu, with sustained winds reaching 165 kilometers per hour and gusts exceeding level 13 on the Beaufort scale. The typhoon's radius had expanded to 150 kilometers, placing Tainan squarely within its destructive reach. In anticipation of the storm, the executive yuan had issued a sweeping suspension of work and school across southern and central Taiwan, including Tainan, Kaohsiung, Jiayi, and Pingdong. By Sunday evening, emergency sirens echoed through the city's districts, and loudspeakers urged residents to stay indoors, secure loose objects, and prepare for prolonged power outages. Supermarkets were flooded with last-minute shoppers. Bottled water, batteries, and instant noodles vanished from shelves within hours. At the Tainan railway station, the last trains departed under a veil of drizzle, their passengers anxious to escape the storm's path. The first major gusts slammed into Amping District, toppling street signs and sending palm fronds cartwheeling down empty boulevards. Horizontal rain lashed the city with such force that visibility dropped to less than 50 meters. The Tainan Canal overflowed its banks by noon, flooding nearby roads and inundating ground floor shops in the historic district. In East District, a construction crane collapsed onto a partially completed high-rise, crushing several parked vehicles. Fortunately, no injuries were reported, as the site had been evacuated the night before. In South District, the roof of a traditional market was torn off, scattering debris across the adjacent temple courtyard. Over 12,000 households in Tainan were without electricity. Taiwan Power Company, Taipower, crews struggled to respond, hampered by fallen trees and flooded access roads. Mobile networks flickered in and out, and residents turned to battery-powered radios for updates. Emergency shelters, set up in schools and community centers, began to fill. Volunteers distributed hot meals and blankets as families huddled together, listening to the howling wind rattle the windows. The Tainan Port Authority suspended all operations as wave heights surged past 9 meters offshore. Ferry services between Tainan and offshore islands were canceled, stranding hundreds of travelers. In nearby Penghu, nearly 10,000 people were cut off from the mainland due to canceled ferry routes. Fishing boats, hastily secured in harbors the night before, were tossed like toys. Several vessels broke free of their moorings and were later found beached along the coast of Chigu District. Tainan, often called the cultural heart of Taiwan, is home to centuries-old temples and colonial-era architecture. As the storm intensified, concern grew for the city's historical landmarks. The Chicken Tower, a 17th-century Dutch fort, suffered minor damage to its roof tiles. The Confucius Temple, Taiwan's oldest, was spared structural harm but saw its courtyards flooded knee-deep. Volunteers from the Tainan Cultural Preservation Society worked through the storm to protect artifacts, moving them to higher ground and reinforcing vulnerable structures with sandbags and tarps. Despite the treacherous conditions, Tainan's emergency services operated with remarkable coordination. Firefighters rescued a family of 5 trapped in their flooded home in Yongkang District, using inflatable rafts to navigate submerged streets. In North District, a nurse braved the storm to reach an elderly patient in need of dialysis, escorted by a police convoy. Mayor Huang Wei-che held a press conference via live stream from the city's Emergency Operations Center. "This is one of the most severe typhoons to strike our city in decades," he said. "But Tainan is resilient. We will weather this storm together." Tainan had recorded over 420 millimeters of rainfall, with some mountainous areas in the city's eastern outskirts exceeding 500 millimeters. Landslides were reported in Nanshi District, cutting off access to several rural communities. The Zhenguan Reservoir, already near capacity, was forced to release water, prompting downstream flood alerts. Environmentalists warned of long-term damage to coastal wetlands and mangrove forests, particularly in Sitsao and Taijiang National Park, where saltwater intrusion and debris could disrupt fragile ecosystems. The economic toll of Typhoon Danas is expected to be significant. Preliminary estimates suggest over 2.3 billion new Taiwan dollars, 70 million US dollars, in damages across Tainan alone. Agricultural losses are particularly severe, with rice paddies, banana plantations, and aquaculture farms devastated by wind and flood. Local businesses, especially in the tourism and hospitality sectors, face weeks of recovery. The Tainan Flower Night Market, a major attraction, sustained structural damage and will remain closed indefinitely. By midnight, the worst of Typhoon Danas had passed. The winds subsided, and the rain tapered to a steady drizzle. But the city it left behind was bruised and battered. Streets were littered with debris, traffic lights dangled precariously, and the hum of generators filled the air. Cleanup crews began work before dawn on July 8th, clearing fallen trees and restoring power. Volunteers from across Taiwan arrived to assist, bringing supplies and solidarity. The Taiwanese Red Cross launched a relief campaign, and donations poured in from around the island. "I've lived in Tainan my whole life, and I've never seen anything like this," said Lin Meihua, a 72-year-old resident of Anping. "But we're strong people. We'll rebuild." "I was scared, but the firefighters came so fast," said Chan Yuhan, age 9, who was rescued with her family. "They were like superheroes." As Tainan begins the long road to recovery, Typhoon Danas will be remembered not only for its rare path and destructive power, but also for the resilience it revealed in the people of this historic city. From ancient temples to modern skyscrapers, from fishermen to first responders, the storm tested every corner of Tainan and found it unyielding. Typhoon Danas, a rare and violent cyclone, made landfall in Budai Township at 11:40 p.m., bringing with it a maelstrom of wind, rain, and chaos that would leave the region battered and reeling well into the following day. The Central Weather Administration, CWA, confirmed that the eye of Typhoon Danas touched down in Budai, a coastal township known for its fishing ports and salt fields. At the moment of landfall, the typhoon packed maximum sustained winds of 144 kilometers per hour, with gusts reaching 180 kilometers per hour, equivalent to a Category 2 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. The storm's trajectory was highly unusual, hugging Taiwan's western coastline and intensifying as it moved northeast. Jiayi, typically spared the brunt of such storms, found itself directly in the path of destruction. In Budai and Dongshi, the first districts to feel the storm's wrath, storm surges overwhelmed seawalls, flooding low-lying neighborhoods within minutes. Fishing boats were tossed onto roads like toys, and the Budai fish market, a vital economic hub, was inundated by over a meter of seawater. Salt pans, a centuries-old industry in the region, were destroyed as brine tanks ruptured and dikes collapsed. Residents described the sound of the wind as a freight train screaming through the sky. Entire rows of streetlights were bent to the ground, and corrugated metal roofs peeled off buildings, clattering through the air like deadly shrapnel. As the typhoon intensified, roadways across Chiayi County became impassable. In Renwu Township, a convoy of vehicles was trapped on Forbidden City East Road, hemmed in by fallen trees and debris. One driver, Mr. Su, recounted the ordeal. It was pitch black, the wind was howling, and trees were falling all around us. We called emergency services, but they couldn't reach us for over an hour. Similar scenes played out in Shueishan, Minxiong, and Puzi, where emergency responders were overwhelmed by the volume of distress calls. Firefighters worked through the night, navigating flooded streets and dodging flying debris to reach those in need. By 2 a.m., over 85,000 households in Chiayi County were without electricity. The Taiwan Power Company, Taipower, reported that transformers had exploded and power lines were downed across multiple districts. As of Monday morning, nearly 49,000 homes remained in the dark, with restoration efforts hampered by blocked roads and ongoing wind gusts. Telecommunications were also disrupted. Cell towers in Lutzhou and Juchi were damaged, leaving entire communities cut off. Residents turned to battery-powered radios and word of mouth to stay informed. In Taipei City, the administrative center of Chiayi County, the storm shattered windows, toppled traffic lights, and ripped signage from storefronts. The Chiayi County government building sustained minor damage, with water leaking through the roof and flooding several offices. In Minxiong, a temporary guardhouse at a construction site was flattened by wind gusts, and several vehicles were crushed by falling trees. Air conditioning units were torn from apartment buildings, crashing onto sidewalks below. The Chiayi high-speed rail station suspended operations due to flooding on access roads and debris on the tracks. Trains were halted, stranding hundreds of travelers who had sought to flee the storm. Chiayi, known for its rich cultural heritage, saw several historical landmarks damaged. The Chiayi Confucius Temple, dating back to the Qing dynasty, suffered roof tile displacement and water intrusion. Volunteers from the Chiayi Cultural Affairs Bureau worked through the night to protect artifacts and reinforce vulnerable structures. In Juchi Township, the Alishan Forest Railway, a beloved tourist attraction, reported landslides along its mountain tracks. Sections of the railway were buried under mud and fallen trees, and restoration is expected to take weeks. Despite the overwhelming conditions, Chiayi's emergency services displayed extraordinary resilience. Over 2,800 residents were evacuated to shelters before and during the storm. In Puzi, firefighters rescued a family trapped in their flooded home, carrying children through waist-deep water to safety. Medical personnel worked under extreme pressure. At Chiayi Christian Hospital, backup generators kept critical systems running as the ER filled with storm-related injuries, mostly lacerations, fractures, and hypothermia. One nurse, Ms. Lin, described the night as a blur of sirens, soaked patients, and non-stop adrenaline. In Renwu District, Kaohsiung City, 2 large advertising billboards collapsed due to strong winds and crushed 2 cars parked on the roadside. Fortunately, no one was in the car at the time and no casualties were caused. However, due to the continuous rainfall, a large amount of mud and sand was washed away on the road, and the scene was like a small mudslide, and traffic safety was worrying. The wind and rain were so strong that it was impossible to ride a bike, so people had to stop by the roadside to take shelter. Tainan Luing and Amping flooded streets. Police urged people to avoid low-lying areas. The police called on the public to avoid entering low-lying areas prone to flooding to avoid being trapped. Some sections of Amping Road were flooded to a depth of about 10 centimeters. Pingdong Kenting Street is deserted and vendors are afraid to open their stalls for safety reasons. Pingdong was also affected by the outer circulation of the typhoon, with wind and rain varying from strong to weak. Kenting Street, a popular tourist destination, should have been bustling, but vendors chose to close their shops to avoid the risk of intensifying wind and rain at night, leaving the entire street deserted. Tourists said, "It's a pity to come all the way here but have nothing to do." In addition to the serious disaster, there are also strange sights that make people smile. A netizen in Tainan went out in a storm and passed the intersection of Fuqin Road and Haiyan Road. He saw a golden furnace moving autonomously in the wind and competing with vehicles for the road. He uploaded the video to the Tainan Disaster Report Zone on Threads and wrote, "Have you seen a golden furnace drifting during a typhoon?" It caused a great response. Many netizens left jokes. Whose golden furnace is collecting protection fees? I thought it was a sweeping robot. This is basically an autonomous version of the procession. The gods came out on their own. It's really amazing. Although the situation was dangerous, it also showed how strong the wind was and reminded the public to avoid going out during typhoon days. Some people witnessed a large iron sheet being blown away by the strong wind in the area of Wenxian Road in the Northern District, and then fell to the ground at high speed with a loud noise, but fortunately no one was hit. According to a video shared by netizens on the social platform Threads, a large iron sheet was blown up by strong winds on Wenxian Road in the North District of Tainan City, which was a very dangerous scene. The original poster also wrote the wind is very strong, and said in the comment area that the screen window of his home had been blown open by the strong wind, calling on the general public to pay attention to safety. The Puji Temple archway in the West Central District of Tainan City collapsed due to the strong winds, crushing a motorcyclist, but fortunately he was not seriously injured. The Haiyan police station in Tainan City said that it received a report at 9 p.m. that a motorcycle had been crushed by an archway at Linen Road Section 1 and Minxing Road Section 2, and immediately dispatched line patrol officers to the scene to handle the matter. The rider suffered minor contusions and was sent to the hospital for treatment and left on his own. The scene was guarded by Haiyan Deputy Director and Police Officer Lee Junyan, who assisted in traffic control. The archway manufacturer has been contacted and is waiting for it to come to the scene for repairs.
超惨的啊，傻眼呢。
期望中等啊，
什么？
这全倒了。
啊！哎呦，要许我的店，哎，你小心啊！